All right, it's Bellator 271 fight week, and first time I'm welcoming this guest on the show. You can catch him in a very high-stakes heavyweight bout this Friday on Showtime. One of the brightest young stars, not only in Bellator, but across any of the heavyweight divisions throughout MMA. If you know anything about wrestling, if you know anything about fighting, you know him. He's the one and only Tyrell Fortune. Sir, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. That was an awesome introduction.
Well, first time on the show, I gotta give you a reason to want to come back. I don't know if the questions are gonna be that way,
man,
but
that was the best one yet. That was the best one yet.
I appreciate that. So obviously, as I just mentioned, you have a big fight this weekend. You're taking on Linton Vassell at Bellator 271, and really high stakes. If you look across, not only where the landscape of the heavyweight division is, but if you look at the top 10 in your division, 7 out of the top 10 fighters have 2 or less losses, yourself included. So coming into this fight against Vassell, how do you feel this fight is? Is this a title eliminator in your opinion?
100%. I think this is a title contention fight. I think whoever wins this fight will be either fighting for the belt or one fight away from fighting for the belt. So this fight will put me right there, ready for the next step.
And with that being said, how do you look at the landscape of your division? Obviously, some veterans, some guys obviously you're friends with, but there also is a lot of not just young blood in there, but a lot of newcomers, a lot of people working their way up, a lot of people you're probably going to have to see as you continue this climb up in your career. What do you make of your division right
now? Well, I mean, honestly, I think it's not that packed with talent, to be honest. We have guys that you say top 10, but 2 of the guys in the bottom of the top 10 haven't even fought 5 times yet. And they haven't fought any competition yet with those guys. So it's I'm not too worried about looking at those guys. But when you look at past those 2 and you go up to the top 7, 6 guys, I think we have probably some of the toughest guys in the company, right all up there at the top, with Bader being the champ. He was a double champ. Moldovsky, Fedor, Czech Congo, Tim Johnson, me, and Linton Vassell, and then I think Steve Mowry's next. I think that competition right there is really good, and I'm excited to see what happens in the future. I'm definitely more excited now to see that Bader has to come back and defend that belt. So now that heavyweight belt is back in the option, because it was vacant not vacant, but just on pause for a little bit. So we didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, one of the big things I was excited to talk to you about is just kind of where this division is at, but also just your career. We saw it, earlier this year with AJ McKee, and we see it more often now than we did back in the day, of Bellator homegrown talent really thriving. And you have that perfect opportunity. You fought your entire pro career with Bellator, and you've seen everything. You've gone through a pandemic with them. We're back on Showtime with them. Well, how would you kind of sum up how your career has gone with Bellator, and really only with Bellator as your home?
Yeah, with Bellator being the only place I've ever fought, this is my home. And I think I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. They've groomed me and treated me in the best possible way and taken care of me every step of the way. So I have nothing but love and gratitude for everything that they've done for me. To say the most, I guess, in how I feel about being here, but I love it here. And I feel like I have a relationship with pretty almost everyone in the company, and it's nice. It makes you feel good to be able to come here and see people that I have relationships.
Also, one thing I wanted to ask you, obviously everybody that knows you knows your brother Tyree as well. What is it like having a family full of fighters? Because sometimes, we see it with the Pitbull brothers, and we saw, what happened there just, last week at Bellator 270. Patricky comes in, wins the belt. But for me, I'm not the guy who's going to ask you about, inside the cage technique and X's and O's and all of that. For me, being on this show is part of just what makes you a fighter and why you continue to fight and all of that. And obviously, if you're fighting and your brother's fighting, that those roots go a long way. So what is it like to have, your brother, your blood right there by your side, fighting as well?
And I actually appreciate you not wanting to ask the X's and O's, because it's like, would you ask a war general, hey, how do you plan on taking the enemy out, right? No one really does that. And I feel like in this sport, so many people who give interviews or ask for interviews always want to ask you, what's your game plan? Just so that they can turn around and go ask my opponent, hey, well, Tyrell said this. How do you feel about it? Well, it's like, right. Well, fuck, whose side are you on? You just told him exactly what I'm going to do and asked me just so he could know and tell you what he plans. Like, that seemed kind of stupid to me. But so I appreciate you.
Of course, I appreciate that.
No, I think it's great. You know, me and my brother grew up fighting, beating each other up all the time. And he stepped into the sport before I did. He was in the sport, you know, doing his amateur career at the same time that I was wrestling on the USA team. So when I stepped into the game, he was excited and a little upset, but I think it's great, you know, to be able to have my brother there and talk to him about the fight game and get some advice from him as well.
I don't want to throw shots at anyone who makes a lot more money than I do, but I always find it very funny when a guy like Stephen A. Smith wants to talk about breaking down football coverages or basketball defense. And it's like, you could play back in the day, but, you know, for me, when it comes to breaking down any type of interviews or talking to a professional athlete, if you haven't been there, done that, I don't know why you want to talk about technique. So I just find it very funny when you have a guy like anybody on most of these big platforms trying to break down a cover 2 defense if we're talking about a football game. And it's like, do you really know? Do you really know? So it doesn't make sense for me to come in here, ask you about your game plan, possibly interview your opponent, which I won't be doing, but you never know in the future, you know? So I do appreciate that. It's one of those things, like I said, I'm just wired a little bit differently. For me, I'd rather people get to know Tyrell Fortune, the person and the fighter, but not the technician. That's just not my thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. And you talk about your extensive wrestling background, and obviously, you know, the story you told, you know, not that long ago about, you know, what happened back in 2012. In a weird way, that was one of the things when they offered this opportunity to talk to you that excited me. Because some people would read your story about what happened to you and when you were literally pronounced dead during a weight cut. And they would read those details that you said to Brett Okamoto of ESPN, and they would be like, why would he still be fighting right now? Why is he doing this? Like, he literally died. So I guess the easiest question for me to ask you is, obviously your brother was in there first, but what led you to go from wrestling into mixed martial arts? And obviously you're one of the best, but what drives you?
Money. I mean, honestly, money, you know what I mean? I'm not in this game I give shit about legacy or anything like that. I want money, you know, to be able to provide for my family and provide a life for myself overall, you know what I mean? I've wrestled my whole life, so the physicality of the sport never like interfered with really. I just had to get used to being punched and kicked. And once I got used to it, now it seems like I've been doing it forever. You know what I mean? So wrestling isn't very much different from the sport of MMA. You're mano a mano, one versus one on the cage. You got a ref, and you get to duke it out. You get to test yourself and test another person to see how far you guys get to go. So it was very easy to translate over. The dying part and the weight cut, that was all my stupidity and me pushing my body to a limit that I shouldn't have. Every coach always tells you about this and the dangers of doing it and what you're risking. And it was my choice to want to go down a weight class. I was a heavyweight going down to 211. So it was that was all on me, you know, it was my choice. So I think from that was just a learning experience and understanding my body more and how to take care of myself better. And that was really it. I didn't really try to take that further than that, other than me making a mistake and putting my own life at risk. And ever since then, I decided not to do anything like that. So no, I think transitioning to MMA had nothing to do with really the weight cut, because now I'm a heavyweight. I don't weight cut. I'm not cutting weight at all. So it's no difference now, no problem for me to step in that cage and fight.
No, I don't know because I'm not in the gym, but obviously all fighters have bad days, whether it's in training, whether it's, you know, a technical bad day, or it's that grind of having to get up. And obviously, like you said, you're not cutting weight, but are there ever times, and you have a great, you know, record in your career so far, so it's hard to imagine that you have many bad days. I mean, your stock is rising quickly and gracefully, really. But are there ever times when you are having those days and you look back and you've seen how far you've come, not just from that day back in 2012, but just how far you've come in your career? And does it just drive you even more?
I'm actually the kind of guy, I look for bad days. I ask my coach all the time to find somebody to whoop my ass in practice, because I know the more I get my ass whooped in practice, the better I'm going to become, and the less opportunity that I'm going to present for another guy to do it in the cage. So I look for that adversity in practice as much as I can. Now, do I have some bad technical days where I don't perform the way my coaches would like to, or execute techniques the way he likes to? Yes, of course, everybody has those days. But as far as like, I'm pretty dominant in practice, and I just try to work on my weaknesses the most. You know, I always want to develop new skills and work on my holes that I have in the game. So that's really what I focus on. And I try to find the people who can execute those things against me, because the more, if you know, what pain brings memory. If someone's executing a technique on you continuously, you're going to figure out, okay, what is he doing? How can I stop this? And how can I make this work for me? So for me, it's really, if I can find, I try to find people to whoop my ass in practice, really, because I feel like I know that that's how I'm going to grow the most, because the next day I'm going to come back to the gym and be like, okay, can you do it again? Because I thought about it all night long. I talked to my coach. I tried to figure something out. I got 3 options now. I'm going to try. Let's see you do it again. And if you can, then the next day, okay, fuck, well, I got to think of something new. You know what I mean? So I feel like the more you can do that in practice, the less you have to try to do that in a fight. And those equations can be answered quicker in a fight. So that's just my look upon the game.
So I'm not just saying this because it's your first time here, but you are literally one of the main reasons why I got into the sport. Somebody like yourself who just answered that the way that you did. I don't think Tom Brady is looking for bad days, or LeBron James is looking for bad days. They'll push themselves past limits, but there's something to me that's so special about mixed martial arts and combat sports as a whole, you being a longtime wrestler, that there's just something different in you professional athletes, you fighters, that you look for these bad days and it brings out something better of you, you know, not only just technically, but mentally, emotionally, physically. And so I appreciate that answer, because that's literally, you're the type of person that I created the show for. And it's nice to know that when I tell people they exist, and I don't always get those answers, it's nice to finally get those answers so I can look and be like, see, they do exist and they're one of the very best. And now to kind of switch over to this Friday, you know, I'm trying to stay away from the cliche questions of how's fight week going, how is camp going, and how are you feeling? Because, I mean, everyone's going to ask you that. And this will be one of the only cliche questions I do have to ask you. But you know, how do you feel about your opponent coming into this fight? We've already talked about the high stakes that lie ahead in this fight at Bellator 271 when you take on Linton Vassell. But what do you make of him as an opponent?
You know, this is again me the second time in a row actually where I'm fighting guys that I actually have relationships with. It's you know, more obviously a little bit more comfortable seeing that we've already traded some gloves together, and so it's just, you know, Linton is a great fighter. He has 30 plus fights under his record. You know, so he's gonna bring good competition to the cage. So I'm really excited to test myself again and see where it goes. But I just think, you know, think I'm more than what he can handle.
Well, we've mentioned the top of the division in Bellator, and you kind of, you know, mentioned all the names that really have your attention and really have the value and the worth there in the division. Obviously, we have, you know, what you think will be either one fight or the next fight away for the winner of your contest here on Friday, on Bellator 271. When you have a guy like Fedor come in, and who knows, it could have been his last fight, maybe not. You know, that's another guy you mentioned, but he sits there at 3. I mean, 46 professional fights. You love to fight veterans. I'm not asking if Fedor is a fight that you want, but I'm asking, what is it like to have
Hell
that?
yes, it's a fight I want. Hell yes, it's a fight I want. I'll fight his ass next week if I can. Fedor.
but to that point, then I'll just start there. Do you think being this young, exciting prospect, a title contender right now before this fight even takes place? Yes, obviously you said, you know, hey, I'm not here for legacy or anything. I want money. I want to set up my family. Do you think having all this stock in you and knowing how Bellator is growing you, that you become an intriguing name for a Fedor and all the other veterans at the top of your division?
No, I don't. These old guys don't want to fight me. No, you think Fedor is looking at the division like, oh, Tyrell Fortune is one guy I want to fight before I get out? Hell no. Check Congo. Hell no. These guys, old man ain't looking to fighting me. So, I mean, I would pray, I would hope that, he asked for the fight, because I've already asked for it. But so, I don't know. I can't tell you how these guys look at the fight game and what these guys are thinking. They're older men I feel like, on their way out. They don't have many fights left. So, but I don't see that these guys are asking Bellator to fight me. Well,
for those who are watching or listening, if you don't have the rankings pulled up in front of you, Tyrell Fortune is sitting here at 5. Tyrell, if you're all things go according to plan this weekend, kind of spoiler alert to those ahead of you, they're all veterans. They're all older guys. They're going to have to fight you.
Eventually, yeah. I mean, Moldavsky is the only one that's not.
Right.
Moldavsky, you still there? Okay, yeah, my phone. Yeah. Moldavsky is the only one that's not. And I think, honestly, I think that they might give Fedor the title shot because of his name and where he's being 3. And I think he's only have one fight left in his contract. So I think Moldavsky might step down for his coach, his mentor, to get that last shot at the title before he retires. And then that's who I possibly see myself squaring off with next is Moldavsky, to see if I can get, since if he'll give that seat up, then you got to fight again to make sure you can get back to that seat. And so I think Moldavsky may be the next fight, or, who knows right now. We'll see what happens at the beginning of next year when Bader comes back to defend that title and who he's fighting it against. And I think once that fight happens, he comes back to defend the title, we'll really start to see what the makeup is and what's going to happen in the next, year or so.
Well, I want to credit you, and I also want to credit Bellator, because I think we've seen it a lot, and maybe there's people that in the gym or people that you just know in the fight game that went through this past year and a half, and the pandemic's not over yet, obviously. And I'm not here to get political or talk about science, but I think we've seen a lot of people in the fight game, a lot of younger fighters in the fight game, kind of have to throw in the towel, whether it be financial reasons or lack thereof training partners or lack of having a gym that could be open. And we've maybe seen some younger fighters have to walk away from a sport that they could be very, very talented in. You obviously kind of had stock before the pandemic started, and Bellator very much invested in you and you're invested in them. What was it like going through this pandemic? And now that we're seemingly starting to come out of it and you're continuing to climb towards the top, how was it handling all of that for you?
Honestly, nothing changed for me. The COVID actually made it easier because it kicked people out my damn gym. So it was just me and that motherfucker. I have to worry about shit. So, I mean, I fought four times. I fought 3 times during the COVID, and it was a great year for me. So, I mean, besides taking the L earlier in the year, but even still, I look at that, and that was a great learning experience for me. I think I needed it, honestly, now when I look back at it now, because where my mind was and head was, I think I was a little too far ahead of myself, and it humbled me and brought my ass back down to earth and made me look at the game a little differently and get back in the gym and hustle a little bit more and add some things to my camp that I needed, like Neuroforce 1, for example. So, no, I think it was a great year. And no, like you said, they invested in me and I invested in them and invested in myself. And hopefully now, we get to start seeing the fruitions of that outcome of that.
Yeah, I can't wait for this Friday. And I really think that people who have watched, who will watch this episode and watch the episode I did yesterday, kind of think that I'm getting paid by Bellator, to sound biased here, but last weekend's event in Dublin, Ireland, it really felt, and we've had other promotions put on shows throughout the pandemic, but that crowd at the 3 Arena in Dublin for Bellator 270, it made me feel, as a fan, as a media person, if you want to call me that we're back. Like, Bellator business is booming. We had a crazy crowd. We have title fights. We have people, homegrown talent like yourself, and AJ McKee getting right to the mountaintop. Like, Bellator has done such a good job of letting fight fans know, like, we're still moving forward. And, oh, by the way, we're back. And they did a great job with the fight bubble and everything that they did. So, credit to them. I can't get over the atmosphere that was, last week. And I know it's going to be crazy down there in Florida. You're sharing the card with Chris Cyborg. Who doesn't watch a Chris Cyborg fight? I mean, there's so many things looking up. So what is the early...
I mean, the atmosphere that we had in Phoenix was amazing. Out of all the fights I have been with in Bellator, the prelims, the arena was packed already. Like, it was crazy. So no, I think the Bellator puts on a great show, awesome show, and it's only getting better. The production and everything is all turning up, and everything is. I'm really excited for the future, where the company's headed, and the things that they're doing now is awesome.
I'm just gonna throw this out there selfishly. If they could come back to Chicago, that would be great. I'm
trying to get them back to Phoenix. So they come to back to Phoenix, and then we'll talk about Chicago. And not in the winter. I'm not trying to go to Chicago in the winter. So that got to be a summer thing.
It's early November here, and we've got like 58-degree weather, and everyone thinks it's 90 right now. It's great. It's absolutely great.
I'm not trying to see that.
It's been 2 years since I've been able to attend any live events. So, the pandemic really shut things down for me. And like you said, you love the direction that everything's going. I love the direction everything's going for them. I think Bellator 271 is going to set up even more for you and a lot more in 2022. So what is the timeline looking like for you then? Obviously, we're in November. I mean, I don't want to speak for you and say I'm sure this is it for the rest of the year. Crazier things have happened, but what does the early timeline for next year look like for you?
I really, to be honest, I don't know. I like to fight every 3 to 4 months. I've pretty much done that so far throughout my whole career. But after this fight will be the last fight of this year. Cause I mean, after this fight, I'm out of here. I'm going snowboarding for like 3-4 weeks.
Wait, did you just say you hate the winter?
No, I hate the winter, but I love the mountain. I love snowboarding. I love snowboarding. So when I'm snowboarding, on the board. I'm not getting cold. I'm sweating hot. You know what I mean? So I'll be in a t-shirt, taking my jacket off all the time. So no, I love if there's a mountain with a snowboard, I'll be in the cold weather then. But no, I mean, we'll see. I think Bader will come back at the beginning of this next year, I think, and defend the title. And now that belt is back in contention, it'll be more active, and I'll be happy to see what happens as we continue to move on further through the year next year.
I do want to thank you for all your time, and just want a couple more here for you. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but you said you like fighting every 3-4 months, but then you also talked about your loss that you took, the only loss that you've taken in your career. It taught you a lot, and you thought it was a good thing for you. And I'm just curious, as you get closer and closer to that inevitable title shot that will be coming your ways, as long as you continue on the path that you're on, I think a lot of people would start to get hesitant in your position, that they don't want to fight as often, that they want to be selective. What is continuing to keep on this path besides the money? I know the answer is money.
Yeah, but I was saying that. I mean, the fact that I love fighting. I love this sport. But money of it. That's why one thing I actually didn't understand was Francis Ngannou. He complained that the UFC, after becoming the champion, asked him to have a title defense in 3 months. And in my mind, I'm thinking, dog, you're the champ now. You get paid. This is probably the most you've ever been paid for a fight now, and you're complaining about doing that shit. Once I become a champ, let me get 5 fights in a year. Let me run this shit up. Like, give me all the fights. I'm ready to fight every fucking 2 weeks, So, but that's just my attitude about it. Like, because I think other people have so much more going on, but I feel very blessed in my position that I don't do anything else. Like, I don't do anything else. I go to the gym, I work out, I take my ass home, I get ready to do it again the next day. The main activity I have outside of fighting is snowboarding. You know what I mean? So, and my dog. So I don't do anything else. So for me, this is all I look forward to. So no, I mean that's why I feel like if you're the champ now, you're the big dog now. You get paid the most money, so why wouldn't you want to defend that belt? And then the more title defenses you get, then now you are building that legacy, which does what? Builds you more money. So no, I mean, I think I'm just a little different, you know what I mean? And if I become the champ, I'm asking for anybody who says my name, I'll pop up.
for aspiring fighters, Tyrell Fortune's blueprint is the exact way you want to be. You got to have the talent behind it. but sticking to the gym and finding a hobby and some dogs is the way to get successful and be successful as you have been early on in your career. Now the UFC heads will sit back and say, well, listen, if, we didn't have this contract dispute with Francis, we wouldn't have had this amazing clip that we were able to use from last weekend's UFC 268, where Francis shunned Tyrell Gane as he walked past him backstage. And, oh my God, it built the fight up even more. And it's just funny.
Did it really? He walked past him and didn't say hi. Did he have to say hi? Like, I'm about to fight you and punch you in the face. And they used to train together, so it could have been a little bit of animosity. We don't know the background of their relationship. And, of course, the media will try to spin it, and Tyrell Gane's going to try to spin it as much as he can because you're the contender. You know what I mean? You want to build that animosity, that drama in the fight to promote it and stuff. So, it doesn't make any that shit doesn't matter. Eventually, you're going to be locked in the cage and you got to fight.
The UFC posting it is what made it funny with me, and their caption was, "You could cut the tension with a knife." I'm like, this is a backstage interaction. I don't really think we're investing that much. Like, sure, when an Irishman attacks a bus and throws a dolly and you want to put that in a commercial to sell a fight, that's one thing. But you're not going to get me at a bar drinking and seeing Francis walk past his opponent backstage and being like, I got to buy that fight. Like, where are we going to watch it? Because I got to buy that fight. That doesn't sell a fight to me.
Right.
With mentioning the other promotion, though, I think there's a lot of talk, and I think there's a lot of credibility and stability behind the argument that Bellator right now boasts a better light heavyweight division than the UFC. And sure, there's names at the top of the UFC's heavyweight division, but with a guy like yourself included and veteran names that have come over from the UFC, how would you compare, the heavyweight division that kind of seems to be stuck in the mud over in the UFC compared to, Bellator that keeps things moving? And yes, the belt was on pause for a little bit, but they've kept you active and they've got, a bright young star in yourself.
Oh, I mean, I would absolutely love if Bellator and the UFC could sit down and have a cross promotion bout. I think it would do great things for both promotions, and then we wouldn't have to speculate on what we think would happen. We get to see some of our Bellator's best talent against UFC's best talent. And I think they both would benefit from it because it would be, I don't know who in the world wouldn't want to watch that card. I think that would absolutely pull more eyeballs from every sport around the world, just based off of that fact that nothing that has ever been done like that before. The two top promotions in the sport are now competing against each other. So then, you know what I mean? But then I think it takes away from that, you never really get to know who the best is because you see Bellator stars come over to UFC and win and dominate. And then you see UFC stars come to Bellator and dominate. So you always have that, oh man, who is the best? That having that fight, that bout would actually show, okay, who's better. But so you don't know. I mean, I don't know. I would love to fight some of those guys or even spar with them. So and I try to. So no, I don't know. It's a fight. I think I whoop anybody's ass. So it don't really matter.
As long as you're getting the paycheck. Well, that's the most important thing. As long as you're getting the paycheck.
Making money, it makes sense.
I'm a little intrigued that you said you even spar with them. I mean, we're not cutting checks here for sparring. We got to get you paid if you're going to be fighting. No matter who it is.
But then you still get to learn, you know what I mean? Like I said, I love the sport, and I'm always looking for someone to whoop my ass so I can get better. So no, I love it.
That is the only mindset I will not adapt from any fighter ever, is I'm not looking for anyone to whoop my ass. So I'm good on that. But other than that, Tyrell, before I let you go, just easy one here. What should we expect from you this weekend at Bellator 271?
Oh man, just I'm gonna go out there and try to give them everything I got, get the fight over with as quick as possible, and get the win. That's what matters. Walking out that cage with your hand held, that's all that matters.
Check in hand raise, and then snowboarding right after. Tyrell Fortune, thank you for your first appearance on this show. You can come on whenever you'd like. I'd definitely love to talk to you again. I really appreciate all the time you gave me, and excited to see what happens this weekend when you take on Linton Vassell at Bellator 271.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and thank you for having me on the show.